You wasn't really right there with Takeoff when he was alive. You know what I mean? So
It's been over a year since Takeoff's tragic death in Houston, but the smoke hasn't cleared, and now things are heating up again. The latest person stirring the pot? Mase, with heavy backing from his longtime ally, Cameron. And they're not throwing light jabs. They're accusing Jay Prince of being way more involved in that night than anyone's admitting. Let's rewind. Takeoff, one-third of Migos, was killed outside a Houston bowling alley in the early hours of November 1st, 2022. The official story painted it as a freak accident during a dice game gone wrong, but the streets, they've never bought that version. Too many moving parts, too many people staying quiet, too much missing footage. Now Mase is saying he's got proof that changes everything. An alleged private phone call between Jay Prince and Takeoff just hours before the shooting. According to Mase, this wasn't some casual check-in call. He claims Prince was pressing Takeoff about loyalty issues, telling him he needed to make certain moves to stay in the good graces of mob ties. And if you know anything about mob ties' reputation in Houston, that's not just advice. That's pressure. That's why the streets are buzzing. If that call really exists, and Cameron's hinted that they've got the recording locked away, it could prove that Jay Prince had direct communication with Takeoff on the same night he died. That's a huge red flag, especially with all the unanswered questions about who was really calling the shots that night. The scene outside the bowling alley was chaos. Witnesses say Takeoff wasn't even part of the dice game. He was just standing by when things popped off. Quavo was arguing with someone, voices got raised, and then gunshots cut through the night. Takeoff caught the worst of it, hit in the head and torso. He was gone before paramedics even arrived. Police arrested Patrick Clark, aka DJ Pat, charging him with the murder. His bail was set at $1 million. But here's where it gets shady. Paperwork initially listed Jay Prince Jr. as someone responsible for ensuring Clark's compliance with bail terms. But by the time the media got a look at the documents, Prince Jr.'s name was gone. That's the kind of quiet editing that makes people think someone's pulling strings behind the scenes. And this isn't an isolated incident. Folks started looking back at other cases tied to mob ties, like the killing of Duke the Jeweler in September 2022. Same setup, a high-profile visitor to Houston, a dice game, a robbery, and a dead body. The similarities are too sharp to ignore. That's why Mase's call-out hit different. He's accusing Jay Prince of running a fake community leader persona in public while using the check-in culture to control who moves through Houston and how. He says it's a trap. Once you're in, you can't move without them. And if you cross the wrong line, things get ugly. And it's not just Mase talking. Ever since Takeoff's death, big names have been quietly distancing themselves from Prince and mob ties. Offset's tension with Jay Prince spilled into the open. Cardi B made cryptic comments online about people trying to act tough with rappers' wives. Even Drake, long associated with Prince's camp, has been noticeably low-key about showing public love lately. But the bombshell here is the claim about that unreleased recording. If it drops and matches what Mase is saying, this could be more than just street gossip. It could be evidence. And in an environment where federal eyes are already watching for RICO cases, that's a dangerous place to be. November 1st, 2022, Houston, Texas. What was supposed to be a chill private event at 810 Billiards and Bowling turned into one of the darkest moments in modern hip-hop. Takeoff, Quavo, and a small crew were in town, and as always when outsiders touch down in H-Town, there's the unspoken check-in rule. Link up with the right people, usually mob ties, for protection and smooth access. That night, Jay Prince Jr. was in the building. And when he's around, things tend to revolve around his circle. From the start, it wasn't your regular hangout. The bowling alley was closed to the public, but security wasn't exactly tight in the way you'd expect for A-list rappers. Instead, it felt like a family affair. Mob ties affiliates, a handful of artists, and some folks nobody seemed to know well. The dice game was where the energy started shifting. Quavo was at the table, money was moving, and according to witnesses, the bets got serious. One moment it was friendly trash talk, the next voices were raised. Multiple people say they heard Quavo say something like, "Let's go before I hurt somebody." And that's when tensions went from simmering to boiling. But here's the thing, Takeoff wasn't playing. He wasn't arguing. He was just a few feet back, minding his business. That's what makes what happened next feel so wrong to people. When the first shots rang out, Takeoff wasn't the one in the heat of the moment, but he caught the fatal rounds. One hit him in the head, another in the torso. He dropped instantly. Surveillance cameras from the building and nearby businesses should have told the full story. But somehow, not all of that footage made it to the public, or even to certain media outlets. Houston police released a carefully clipped video for the press, but the rest stayed locked away. That's the first big red flag. If this was truly just a random argument gone bad, why isn't every angle being shown? Then there's the mystery of who had guns. Multiple witnesses claim more than one shooter was involved. The police officially charged DJ Pat, saying ballistic evidence tied him to the fatal shot. But street talk says other people fired too, and some of them were Mob Ties affiliates, yet nobody else was charged. The other thing that raises eyebrows is how fast J. Prince Jr. walked away from the scene. In the released footage, you can see him leaving while Takeoff's body is still on the ground. No attempt to help, no visible shock, just gone. For a man who's publicly positioned himself as a protector of artists in his city, that visual alone set off alarms. And let's not forget the timing. Just weeks earlier, Duke the jeweler had been killed in Houston, right after hanging with some of the same people. That situation also involved a dice game and ended in robbery and gunfire. Different victim, but eerily similar playbook. That's why people say this wasn't just bad luck. It was a setup, or at the very least, a situation where the host didn't control their own event. And when you mix that with Mase's claim about J. Prince speaking to Takeoff hours before his death, it paints a picture that's way more sinister than the "wrong place, wrong time" headline the mainstream media sold. It's also why the streets don't buy the idea that DJ Pat was some lone gunman acting on impulse. The $1 million bail, the quiet changes to his bond paperwork, and the fact that J. Prince Jr.'s name got scrubbed from it, all of that screams damage control. When Takeoff's death hit the headlines, J. Prince stayed quiet for a bit. Then as whispers started turning into accusations, he went on a full PR run. Interviews, social media posts, long captions calling himself a man of peace and a protector of the culture. He painted Mob Ties as a misunderstood family, one that's been unfairly linked to violence because of its street roots. But the internet wasn't buying it. Clips of him and J. Prince Jr. moving around Houston like bosses, giving orders, checking people's tone, had been circulating for years. People felt like his peacekeeper talk was just a cover for the real muscle that runs behind the scenes. Then Mase stepped in. On his It Is What It Is show with Cameron, he didn't just question J. Prince's image, he ripped it apart. He called the check-in culture a trap, a way to lure artists into situations where they're completely dependent on their host for safety and vulnerable if things go left. Mase even hinted that he and Cameron had receipts, not just hearsay, but a recording of a conversation between J. Prince and Takeoff hours before the shooting. In his words, that conversation wasn't friendly. He claims it was pressure, the kind of talk that makes you wonder if Takeoff was being told to choose sides in some behind-the-scenes tension. Now, to understand why that's a big deal, you've got to know what the check-in really means in certain cities. In places like Houston, Louisiana, and Chicago, outsiders, especially big-name rappers, are expected to tap in with the local power players. In theory, it's about mutual respect and protection. In reality, it's about control. Once you check in, they decide where you go, who you hang with, and how the night plays out. That's where Mob Ties built its reputation. They weren't just a rap label. They were the gatekeepers of Houston streets for anyone famous coming through. And for years it worked. Artists praised them publicly, did favors behind the scenes, and made sure to show love on social media. But when Takeoff died under their watch, that protective image took a massive hit. J. Prince tried to counter by pushing the narrative that Takeoff's death was a tragic accident caused by outsiders. He pointed at DJ Pat and suggested it was just bad luck that Takeoff got caught in the crossfire. But people noticed what he didn't say. No mention of the missing footage, no comment on why Mob Ties security didn't control the scene, and no explanation for why Jay Prince Jr. left before paramedics even arrived. Meanwhile, Mase kept pressing. He called out the fake OG energy he says Jay Prince puts on for cameras while moving very differently behind closed doors. Cameron backed him up, saying if that recording ever saw daylight, the public would see Jay Prince in a whole new light. And here's the thing, this isn't just rap beef. This is the type of public challenge that chips away at a street legend's armor. When people start believing you can't control your own events, or worse, that you might be involved in setting people up, your whole brand of respect gets shaky. Add in the fact that Takeoff's death is still fresh in fans' minds, and now every story about Mob Ties comes with an unspoken question. Are they really about protecting the culture or controlling it? Here's the thing about street whispers. If they get loud enough, they don't just stay in the streets, they end up in federal ears. And with Takeoff's murder, Duke the Jeweler's killing, and now Mase and Cameron openly hinting at recorded evidence, the feds have more than enough reasons to start connecting dots. Patterns are what law enforcement loves. And in the last couple of years, that pattern around Houston's check-in scene looks bad. Big-name artist comes to town, links with Mob Ties, ends up at a private dice game, night ends in gunfire. And somehow the official story never lines up with the rumors. With Takeoff, you've got a high-profile victim, multiple shooters, missing footage, and a suspect whose bail was quietly altered to remove Jay Prince Jr.'s name. With Duke the Jeweler, you've got another out-of-towner, another dice game, another robbery murder with Mob Ties associates in the orbit. 2 tragedies in 2 months with the same names floating around? That's more than coincidence to most people. Now add in Mase stirring the pot. He's not just talking slick for clicks. He's framing Jay Prince as someone hiding behind a community leader mask while running the same kind of pressure game the streets have whispered about for years. And Cameron backing him up only gives it more weight. These aren't rookies chasing clout. They're industry veterans with their own reputations, and they know what it means to call out someone of Jay Prince's status. If that alleged recording really exists, the one Mase says is a conversation between Jay Prince and Takeoff hours before the murder, that could be game-changing. In the streets, it's a bombshell. In court, it could be evidence. And if the feds are already watching for RICO-related activity, something like that could open doors they've been waiting to kick in. That's the quiet fear inside circles tied to Mob Ties right now. Because once the feds move in, they don't just look at one incident. They pull the thread. They dig into fingerprints, phone records, business dealings, old cases. And when you're talking about a family with decades of influence in both music and the streets, you're talking about a lot of threads to pull. Public perception is shifting too. The same people who once praised Jay Prince for keeping Houston safe for artists are now wondering if that safety came with strings attached. Even some in the industry have been keeping their distance, not just to avoid being linked to the drama, but because nobody wants to be next in a wrong place, wrong time headline. As for Mase, this move has put him in a dangerous lane. Calling out a respected OG publicly, hinting at recordings, and refusing to back down, that's not something you do without expecting blowback. But maybe that's the point. Maybe Mase knows the feds are watching and figures this is the safest time to speak because everyone's being extra careful. In the end, the truth about Takeoff's death might still be locked up in those missing tapes and private phone calls. But one thing's for sure, the pressure around Mob Ties is building. The streets are talking, the internet's amplifying it, and the feds, they're probably taking notes. And if Mase and Cam ever decide to drop that alleged recording, this won't just be a rap story anymore. It'll be the kind of headline that changes the power structure in Houston, maybe for good.